All right, today I'm excited to welcome Alykhan Jetha to the show. Alykhan, thanks for joining me. How are we doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Oh, not bad, not bad. First interview of the day. That's always it's always a good start. Let the audience know you do go by AJ.
Yeah.
That was the communication, but I always like people to know my guest name, and I also like them to know where they start. And as in the show, we talk about your journeys to get there, twists and turns along the way. So AJ, if you could introduce yourself to the audience, let them know who you are, what you got going on now, and then we'll circle back and figure out how you got there.
All right. Well, I'm AJ. I'm CEO of a company called Marketcircle. We make a product called Daylite.app, which is a productivity and CRM tool catered to small businesses. So people starting businesses from a side gig all the way to about 100 people in size. That's the kind of market we cater to. And mostly people that sell some kind of service. Um, and we have customers all over the world.
Nice.
And I started from, you know, I had to pivot many times to get to where we are today, and
Okay.
a
I mean,
various number of detours and whatnot along the way. So lots of topics to talk about.
it sounds like your business really caters to a lot of people that are in this audience that are looking to make those transitions, that may have made that transition and might need some help. So I think you'll
Right.
definitely have some curious listeners here. But we like to talk about more about the journey. So let's go back. As you were a kid,
Mhm.
what was childhood like? Was there a career path that you always dreamed of? I know as we're kids, we run around, we want to be an athlete or something special.
Right.
Where
Right.
did you grow up? What kind of childhood dreams did you have?
So I grew up. I was born in the Congo, and we were expelled out of there, then went back, and all this kind of stuff. So until the age of 12, I was in the Congo, growing up over there, and back then I didn't think of career or anything like that, but I was more inclined towards the, making things, like I always like to make things. And so I thought of myself as perhaps becoming an engineer or one of those kinds of things, like somebody that makes stuff.
In
That was
in that
always in my mind, but not a specific career path.
in that culture, is that popular? Like, I'm not familiar with the culture in the Congo. Would that be a typical thing? Like, here in America, we get pushed to go to college, and it seems like there's a big transition now to go back to trades and hard labor, not hard labor, but physical labor, doing things
Right.
with your hands and things like that. What was that kind of position in the Congo at that time? Was this fostered, or was it just what you wanted to do?
So over there, it's a very um, polar kind of thing. So either you're really wealthy um, and you're running businesses and so forth, or you're really poor and working in various things. And there's a very small, thin middle class. We were
Okay.
in kind of in that category. So it was either you would go one way or the other. But getting from the middle class, typically you would be working for somebody, but the only way to get out of that particular thing was to start a business,
Okay.
right? To
Okay.
start a business of some kind. And so there was a lot of that back then, but my mind was more in terms of cars and things like that. But I was exposed to the idea of businesses. My mom ran a shop and a restaurant,
Okay.
and so I was exposed to that back then.
So you're are you currently in Canada? Is that what
Yes,
I took?
yes.
Okay, I took from your profile that you're in Canada. Did you end up there as a child, or I saw that you ended up there as a refugee? Was that as a child? Was that
Yeah, that was
transition?
as a child.
Okay.
So when we got expelled from the Congo the first time in 1974,
Okay.
and so I came to Canada. I was 4 or 5 years old as a refugee.
Okay. And then did you end up going? You said you ended up going back and expelled
Yeah,
again.
yeah,
How
yeah. So
how
we went back a few years later after they realized the mistake of kicking us out. Uh, Us meaning Asians, right? South Asians. And so we went back. Unfortunately, my dad passed away when we got here the first time. So my mom was trying to figure out, like, how am I going to raise 3 kids? It was me and my 2 sisters. And so she went back to try and open a shop. And it was a difficult challenge for her, being a woman in a mostly male dominated society. And she raised us. She did all right.
Do you think that gave you some mental toughness, some thick skin going through all of that turmoil, being expelled from what you knew?
Mhm.
Did you have a grasp at what was going on there? Did
No, I
that?
didn't have a grasp. But the question about mental toughness is a good one. So, what I learned early on is there's a couple of things. Is one thing is, it doesn't matter what others think of you. It matters what you think of you. And then my mom would always kind of hammer this into me, that it doesn't matter. So I translate her sayings to, if you don't pay my rent, I don't fucking care what you say or what
Yep.
you think, right? Maybe I'm not supposed to say that word on
Oh
this.
no, you're all right. I'm a free will person.
So I learned that attitude, that it's up to me, really. It's not up to others. And that was during that period. And I think a lot of times people kind of expect life to happen to them, rather than say, well, you know what, it's not going to, because I experienced that when I was a kid. It wasn't going to. We had to do it ourselves, right? So I learned early on that I have to do it somehow, some way. I got to hustle. I got to do something to get something done, right?
And
To be of value.
it appeared you had a role model to do that. It sounds like your mom was doing whatever she could to make that happen, try to figure something out, successful or not. That the effort was there.
The effort. That's the key. That's the
And
key.
yeah, and so you ended up back in Canada the second time. Is that where you ended up going when you left again?
Yeah. So that was in 1982. So I was 12 years old at the time. I came back to Canada.
Was
Um,
there a connection there? Was there family there? Was that just who was willing to accept you from the Congo? How does that work? Like, I'm very unfamiliar with it.
so when we came here the very first time, we stayed with some relatives until we could get our own place. Then when we went back, so my sisters stayed here in Canada. And then when we went back, it was my mother and I, and we stayed at somebody hosted us for a number of months until we could get on our feet and we could get our own place and all that kind of thing. So it was through the grace of other people being kind to us that we were able to transition. And then the second time I came back, my elder sister was getting married, and my mom didn't want my middle sister to be alone, so she sends this 12-year-old. Um, uh, you know, so it turns out that my sister at the time, 18, became my legal guardian.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
So you finished school. Did you finish school in Canada? Did you end up
Yep.
pursuing college? Was there a path set there?
So a kind of a rocky path. So I didn't do well in school, um, and I managed to get to university somehow, but I failed university first year, which is I failed, right? And then I ended up in community college. And the reason that I ended up in community college versus and I did well in community college, and that was because it was hands on, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, it was like university was more about theoretical and all that kind of stuff, and community college was like I was actually putting things together, electronics and stuff like that. And so I did really well. Like I came out with honors. I failed university, and then I went to community college and came out with honors. Um, and so that to me taught me something that I tell a lot of kids these days is like, if you can get um, a place like a situation where you have what we call co-op here, where you're in school 4 months, you're working 4 months, you're in school 4 months, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so those each time you get placed in different places, so you get to learn different kinds of businesses. And what I learned in that process is what I don't like, which
Right.
which, which was big business, right? So I
Right.
always recommend when anybody asks me, is like, okay, well, what would you do? If you can get co-op, whether it's a university or a community college, you should do that, because that gets you experience in the field. And then in other places they call it an apprenticeship
Yeah.
or whatnot, right? So I favor those kinds of things because you get to learn early what you don't like and what you do like and what maybe you can excel in,
I
what you
took
really
that.
suck at.
I took that path. The going to college, the really thriving in the things that interest me,
Yeah,
math and science. But we were required to take English and a foreign language and
right.
the theoretical things, and I just didn't care about them. It wasn't that I couldn't learn them; I just didn't
Yeah,
care. I just
right.
had no interest. And so that balance really tipped me and ended up leaving school. And like you, went to community college and thrived again on the things that I was interested in because they were more focused on getting you the credits that you needed to get the actual degree. It
Right.
felt like the bigger university was more focused on the big picture, the big round
Yes,
picture,
yes,
not
yes.
just training you on what you actually want to learn. And then I went in and just went whole hog into trades and things like that after a decade in hospitality. I'm a hands-on person. I have to learn it myself and fail it myself is the bigger thing. Uh,
Yeah, I
okay.
think that's important. It's important to convey that that's all right, right? Like a lot of people have this stigma or worry about failing and learning on their own. That's okay. That's how I don't know. That's how I learn. I'm failing all the time,
If you're
right?
not failing, you're not trying something hard enough.
But there you go, there you go. And I feel that people are a little too worried about that. Just like, no, it's okay. You fall, you just get up
Right.
and you just got to get up, right? Like you just don't beat yourself, forgive yourself for making the mistake, whatever mistake it was or whatever you didn't learn, and then just get back up and keep going.
So you came out of community college. What kind of career path or job did you come out of there? I mean, did you go on your own, or did you figure I gotta go make some money? I'm gonna get a
Yeah, no,
job.
I had no money, so I had to make some money. So I got a job as a kind of tech in a CAD CAM company, which is they did computer aided design and manufacturing. And they sold equipment for that, and
Okay.
I helped install the equipment and all that jazz. So that was my first job out of college. Unfortunately, they went bankrupt, and one thing led to another. I actually worked for free after they went bankrupt. I was on unemployment insurance for a little while, and so I was trying to get into um, like coding jobs, right? And back then you needed a computer science degree and or a math degree or one of those things. I didn't have those, and so everywhere they would kind of reject me. So what I did instead was when I was on unemployment insurance, I went to the one of the company. I went to all the companies that rejected me initially, and I offered to work for free to get equal time on a computer because I couldn't afford a computer back then. To get equal time on a computer, so I could actually teach myself
Hmm.
how to code and all this kind of stuff. And so one of the companies that I approached like 5 or 6 companies. One said, "Sure, why don't you come here? We'll do the trade." So it was a barter basically, and I did all kinds of stuff. I swept the floors, I ran errands, I did whatever they needed me to do. That was the deal, and then they would give me equal time on a computer. Then that company went bankrupt, and so but now I have experience, right? So
Right.
I went back to those companies that had rejected me and said, well, now I have some experience, right? And I got in, and one thing led to
That's
another.
that's the paradox that I think a lot of students have, and you talk about the co-op model there, apprenticeship here, whatever it's called, where in
Yeah,
different places. That ends up providing you that experience when you come out, where you can go and say, "Hey, I got the education, and I also got this experience along with it."
that's right.
When you go to the university, you come out, everybody wants experience, but no one has it. And if you got creative and figured out how to get some experience and teach yourself, and that's fantastic. Man, to encourage anyone to do that and
Yeah,
realize you got paid so much more than they could actually pay you to do the jobs you were doing.
that's
Like,
right. So because so it was like I had to make that investment work for free, right? But look what I got in return,
Right.
right? So sometimes you gotta, some people they have, well, you're not paying me, I'm not gonna do anything, right?
Right.
But really, you can do that for a little while. You don't do it forever, right? You
And
do it for a little while.
pay isn't always money. I
Mm.
think people realize, like, I've really immersed into a value for value ethos in my life, and you talk about putting value out there and getting value back, and it always comes in exchange. Um, but I think you have to open your mind to that value necessarily isn't equated with dollars or currency.
Right.
There's a lot of things more valuable than that. So
Yeah.
bravo for understanding that, or just realizing the need for it at that point. So you ended up getting that experience of getting a job. Is that kind of the route you took for quite a while as a
Yeah.
coder?
Yeah. I did that then for a number of years, and then I started as a consultant. So I was still coding, but as a consultant as opposed to an employee. And then I started this company. This is the second company I started, was this one. And in with this company, I pivoted many times so we are what we are doing today. That was not how we started, right?
Okay.
We took a few detours. Uh, and
What was the original intent of the company?
so the original intent was .com way back when. I'm dating myself here. And the idea was that you would put up something for sale, and instead of an auction, you would negotiate a price between the buyers and sellers, right? So, nowadays a few sites are coming up like this, but that was the idea back then. I think we were a little too early, and I tried to raise money, and it didn't work out. The .com bubble burst, and then we reverted back into consulting for a while. During the consulting stuff, we made a product. Then we started selling the product while we were doing consulting. So, multiple pivots
What kind
there.
of product did you make? Was it like a software product?
Yeah. So actually our main product now, Daylite, is what we started with as actually, no, the very first thing that we did. Um, so we had our .com thing. Then we did consulting for somebody. No, it was Daylite, because we needed a tool. I needed a tool that helped me kind of grow the business, so meaning some sales aspect. And because what would happen is I'd be coding, and I'd have we had a couple other people with us at the time, and I'd have to do sales calls periodically to get new contracts and new business, and I would forget when to do them. And if I did remember, which I did do sometimes, um, I would forget where we left off and what was the next step, and all
Mm,
these kind of things like made me look really unprofessional. So
right.
I said, I need something to help me, and so we built what is Daylite now, but as a technology showcase. We weren't thinking of actually selling it as a product at the time. It was more like, hey, look what we can do. Now hire us to do
Do
custom
it for
coding for
you,
you,
but you've
right?
already done it.
Right. And so then we got convinced to sell it as a product, and then then we were selling that as a product, as a license-based on-premise product.
I
Then we pivoted it to the cloud, and so forth, and so several pivots. So there was it's intertwined, but many pivots in between.
You've done what needs to be done twice. Like in the two things you said there, with the online negotiating instead of
Yeah.
an auction.
Yeah.
You see it now with the buy it now prices or the make an offer prices on places like
Yep.
eBay. They've
Yep. Yep.
integrated that idea.
Yep.
But you saw a pain point for someone there that didn't want to go through the auction thing,
Yep.
and created a solution. It might have been too early. It
Yeah.
happens.
It
But
was
you
that was 2000.
Oh yeah, yeah. So
2001.
you identified a problem and solved it just too early, but then you did it again unknowingly almost. Like you saw a problem that you had, you fixed it, and
Yeah.
people were like, "I could really use that."
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So once you got it squared away, you kind of just you've grown the company and that's your product, and you kept refining it, or is there
Yeah.
a plethora of other things that come with it?
Yeah, well, no, for a little while we had a separate product, but then we realized it was really too difficult to do multiple products in the way we wanted to do it. So now we've just been focusing on Daylite, um, and it's a very competitive market, right? So we have to change and adjust and tweak like all the time. Like it is a never-ending thing, which is fun and challenging. So that's in the software space now, especially with all this AI stuff and everything. Like it's a competitive space. Like
I was gonna say, is that it, so you're constantly, and like I try to stay up. That's stuff like I'm in Bitcoin and crypto and AI and all these spaces a little bit. It's not my profession. Um, Keeping up with it has to be, you have to stay up to it and ahead of it so you can integrate it into your services or not get obsoleted by it.
Right.
That's that's kind of like a full-time, that's got to be a full-time job for you or somebody on your team, just making sure you're not falling behind the curve.
Yeah, and it's easy to fall behind the curve, and we did a few times, right? So the thing is that to know what to focus on, because you can't do it all, right? And so like we're not, for example, we're not in crypto and all, and I don't even know much about crypto other than the blockchain, the way it works, because
Right.
how can I use that in my product kind of thing. um, uh, but it's important to kind of stay focused, and when you don't, not when I say focus, you mean focus on the right things,
Right.
because when you don't and you get distracted, which has happened a few times, then the competition will mow you over, right?
Because they are focused.
Because or that's a new space for them that they're entering, and they're focused on that particular space, or there are new opportunities and you don't see them, and then they take them, and then that's a more relevant thing at the time. So those kinds of things, like you could be distracted over here, meanwhile you really need to be looking over here, and if you do look over here, it's not too difficult to stay ahead. It's just when you narrow your focus, it's not too bad. But when you try and focus on many things, it's very difficult because there's so many things.
I struggle with that myself because I try to do stuff that I'm interested in, and I try to monetize things I'm interested in, but I'm interested in so much. It's
Right, right.
is the
Yeah, you got to
problem.
pick your battles.
Right, for sure, and it's almost like a big funnel that gets narrowed down and then goes wider again and gets narrowed down, back and forth for me, and yeah, it's getting there. I hear more successful people than me, like yourself and several other people I've talked to on this show, that preach the focus thing, and I think it's something that people need to get through their head, and
It,
me
it's
being one of them.
it's difficult. Like, let me tell you, it's like you hear it and then you do it sometimes, and then it's easy to get off the rails, right? And um, it's Steve Jobs used to say, um, focus is not about saying yes, it's about saying no,
Say no.
right? You
Yep.
say no more often than you say yes. um, in fact, you should say yes very little.
Especially to yourself.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even more so when it's yourself.
Right. It's hardest inside your head to say no. Like
Yeah.
you can get good at saying no to other people, but to yourself it really takes a lot of work. Uh AJ, we're kind of coming up on time here, and I'd like to give folks plenty of time to promote their stuff, what they have going on. Let the audience know who should really reach out and could benefit from you, or people interested in learning more, where they can find out more or catch up with you.
So our website and our product is Daylite.app. So Daylite.app, and you can get us on the web on that using that address. And who we cater to and who we try and help is anybody starting a business, or anybody that has already started a business and is overwhelmed with this tool over here, that tool over there. We have a suite, like it's one application, we call it a suite, that has a calendar, it has tasks, it has email integration, it has projects, it has opportunities. And the idea of it is that, we help you do the day-to-day productivity things, and then we have the CRM component, which is the opportunities and projects, and the relationship stuff. And then when you get that, then you have the project part, which is again integrated into everything to actually execute on whatever it is that you sold, right? So that's our product. And I've always championed and loved small business. That's why I stay in this space. And if you're starting part-time, you can start with us. Or you've already started and you've tried a bunch of different tools and it's like too much and overwhelming, you can kind of solidify on our tool. And then we've seen customers grow from 2-3 people all the way to over 100. Like we say we're 1 to 100 kind of thing, but we have customers in the 120s and the 130s, right? And so we cater to that. Majority of our customers are 1 to 20. That's our curve there. And then we have a long tail for these like massive customers. But the beauty is they started with us when they
Right.
were
It
less
sounds
than
like
10.
the onboarding is that 1 to 20, 1 to 50, 1 to 100, and then you can scale with them up to a certain point.
Yeah. Usually they start with us small and then they scale and grow massive.
The
And then
fact that with your tool you have success with these companies growing, I think that's one of the best stamps of approval that you can
yeah.
get. So.
Yeah. And that gives me validation as to, this is what I set out to do, and this is what actually occurs. So sometimes what will happen is there's a little bittersweet thing, right? So you'll have a customer that's been with us, and obviously it's a good, good revenue from that customer. But then they sell their company, they're like 80 people and they sell their company, and the acquiring companies, oh, you got to migrate over to whatever systems they're using. And so they're no longer a customer. But to me, it's like a success, right? In one way, we helped them get there. We didn't get them there. We just helped a little bit. And then now they're going to the next stage, but then we lose them as a customer. So a little bittersweet, but that happens quite a
You
few
were
times.
part of that success, and I think if you're a prominent part of that success, your reward, besides the self satisfaction and the revenue that came along with it, is you got somebody that's your champion.
Yeah. So they'll usually come back. So when they start their next business,
Their
they
next
come back,
business. Yep.
or they're promoting us, through word of mouth, because actually that's our biggest source of leads is word of mouth. People telling
Yeah,
other people about us.
I can imagine going. I mean, I can't. Right, I haven't done it, but you go from that single digit employees to that point where you're selling to someone huge. If
Yeah.
you've been with me every step of the way, you can't separate those things. Like
Yeah.
it's ingrained in you. So
Yeah.
AJ, I appreciate the conversation. You've definitely had a journeyed story, back and forth, and you're creating something great and helping people that definitely need it and are the backbone, I think, of the economy of this world. So, man, I appreciate you and appreciate you being here. I'll get your link in the video description, the audio description, and I encourage people to check you out. And I appreciate you being here, and hopefully we can catch up soon.
Absolutely. I'd love to be back on, and thank you for putting the show on. I think it'll help some people just in general with the concept of your show. So good job on that.
Appreciate it.